Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AAFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. We're going to talk about Bo Bergdahl, and we'll talk some more about this senatorial campaign in the state of Mississippi. Very, very important. Chris McDaniel, the best chance at a Tea Party insurgent unseating a long-term establishment Republican. So there's been a tremendous amount of national attention devoted to this race, and it's very, very important for a number of reasons. I want to give you a little more information about that in the second hour. We'll talk about Bo Bergdahl and more of the developments there, and then we'll talk about what the race for the Senate in Mississippi, what that reveals. We got a primary runoff coming up on June 24, just in less than 3 weeks. So anyway, I just want to mention before we go to the phones, 888-589-8840, just this ongoing humanitarian catastrophe with what President Obama is doing to children. Now, remember, the Democrats are the liberals are the ones that say that they are all about the children. We have to do it for the children. We have to have welfare for the children. We have to have welfare programs for the children. We have to have preschool for the children. We have to have elementary school for the children. We have to increase school budgets for the children. We have to feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the summer at schools because we're doing it for the children. It's all about the children. And yet, because of President Obama's refusal to secure the border, our southern border is being overrun by unaccompanied minor children. This is a humanitarian catastrophe. If you've not done it, go to Breitbart.com today, and you will see pictures of these children, many of them under the age of 12, some as young as 3, who are being warehoused. They're in these big, giant rooms. It looks like something after Katrina. And these are unaccompanied minors. Ladies and gentlemen, they have no mother, they have no father to look after them, to care for them, to try to find food for them, to find shelter for them, to find food for them or clothing for them. They are unaccompanied minors. And because they've been led across the border, because President Obama will simply not secure the border, that's why I just got to tell you, I don't want to hear about anything when it comes to immigration reform. I don't want to hear about anything until we have built a double-layer security fence across the entire southern border. We have to stop this flood of illegal aliens. As much as you might care for these young children, and who doesn't, we don't want this to happen to anybody. I mean, it breaks my heart to see kids warehoused like that. So if it breaks our heart to see that, we don't want to see that happen, then we need to ask ourselves the question, who is to blame for that? We saw that woman down in Austin, Texas, her back being broken by the tax burden. We feel sympathy for her. We feel compassion for her. We feel sorrow for her. But whose fault is it? Well, it's her own fault, and she doesn't even seem to understand it. Now we have this humanitarian catastrophe, and ladies, that is not too strong a term. It is a humanitarian catastrophe. You got these kids coming across the border into Texas. They're loading them up on planes and buses and dropping them off in Phoenix, dropping them off in San Diego, dropping them off in Los Angeles. We're converting military installations to big, giant bunkhouses for these unaccompanied children. Where is the money going to come from to provide care for them, to provide food for them, to provide clothing for them, to find them a place to live? It is just no way. It's a catastrophe. And it's children who are being victimized by this, and they're being victimized by President Obama and this ridiculous dreamer thinking, and Republicans that signed on to this, whether it's Eric Cantor or John Boehner or Marco Rubio, that have bought into this dreamer thing where if you get across the border before you're 16, we'll guarantee you can be here forever, and in time we'll get your parents and your in-laws across the border. That's what's causing this. That's this big, giant carrot. They're lunging for the carrot, and they wind up falling into this ravine. So where does the fault lie here? It lies with President Obama and this DREAM Act, and it lies with every Republican who thinks that the DREAM Act is somehow compassionate. It is not compassionate. Take a look at what's happening right now. Thousands of children being holed up in these military installations, these empty warehouses and hangars, because there's no other place to put them. And they're just disappearing into the interior. They're just disappearing into the interior. What immigration officials do is they'll give them a court date. You got to come back and you got to show up in 15 days at such and such a place. Well, they just disappear. they go get on the next bus out of town they can, or people will give them a bus ticket. Next bus out of town, they just absolutely disappear. And nobody knows, nobody can say what's going to happen to these children. This is a piece from Latino.Fox News. It was not immediately clear what would happen to the children's deportation cases once they are transferred to Port Hueneme. That is a port, I believe, in, where is that? In Ventura County. So here's a naval base that's being used now to house these children, and nobody knows what's going to happen to them after they're processed. Where are they going to go? Because a lot of them are from Central America. That's why you've got to have a border that's secure so parents can't be persuaded to do something so foolish as to expose their young children, their minor children, to such unconscionable risks. It is a humanitarian catastrophe, and that the blame for that, in my mind, rests upon anybody who supports the DREAM Act. That's the carrot that's causing this problem. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's begin with Danny in Mer Rouge, Louisiana. Danny, welcome. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm thankful for your efforts. Yesterday on your program, it was stated that in cases of impeachment, such as the president, then the result would only be removal from office.
Yes,
But Article 1, Section 3, last paragraph of the Constitution says, judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law.
Well, there you go. There you go.
It seems that it does go further than removal from office. It seems that once he is removed from office, then he can be tried in regular court and
absolutely
convicted and punished.
Okay, well, there you go. And Danny's exactly right. I'm looking at it right here. I got it underlined. I'd forgotten about this part of the Constitution. I appreciate you, Danny. Very helpful. Very educational to be reminded of this. If it's an impeachment and the individual is convicted, the only thing that the Congress can do to him is remove him from office. That's the extent of the punishment they can impose. But Danny's exactly right. The party convicted, let's say, since we've been talking about the impeachment of President Obama, the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. So he could still be in some kind of legal trouble and wind up in a regular criminal court for prosecution. All right, Danny, listen, that's terrific. Thank you for reminding us of that, and I am embarrassed to admit that I had forgotten that. Thank you, Danny. Great call. Let's go to Tom in Marion, Ohio. Tom, welcome. What's on your mind? Tom, let me have you turn your radio down so we don't get any interference there, and tell me what's on your mind.
Hey, Brian. I just like to call and remind everybody if we don't step up and start doing something about the president. I mean, he let 5 terrorists go for a traitor, and if we don't do something about this, to him everything's going to be okay. What's the extent of what he might do? I mean, the American people need to start standing up for America and start doing what they can. Call their congressmen, senators, whatever. Tell them we want him out of there.
Well, you know what is interesting? I'm listening to Lindsey Graham, and he's kind of rattling his saber now and about this release of these Guantanamo Bay detainees who are, in fact, the worst of the worst. In fact, you know who was freaked out when they heard that these guys were being released? It was people who live in Afghanistan. They remember what these guys did. It was scorched earth. They pillaged, they burned, they murdered, they raped these guys. So the Afghanis are freaked out that these guys are going to come back to Afghanistan. They remember what they did back in the late 90s. These are bad actors. Every one of them is a bad actor. You know, and Lindsey Graham, Tom, he was saying yesterday, hey, if President Obama does this again, we're going to have to impeach him. You know, and I think my response is probably similar to yours. Well, why does he have to do it again? I mean, isn't once enough? You know, like Andy McCarthy said, this is an impeachable offense all by itself. I don't think we need to wait. You know, if you're going to impeach him for something like this, why wait?
Right. I mean, what I mean, like I said, what else does he have to do? I mean, America's going to have to wake up. If we don't wake up and start doing something about it now, we're going to wake up and we're not going to recognize America tomorrow.
Well, and I agree with you, Tom. And, and with a lot of these politicians, it's always, well, the next time it happens, we're going to get serious about it. Well, no, we're never going to let this happen again. Well, you got an opportunity to do something about it now, and now is when something needs to be done. All right, Tom, thank you. Let's go to David, Tyler, Texas. David, welcome. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hey, Brian, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Listen, this is nothing about releasing the American prisoner. He is a pawn. This is about clearing out Guantanamo Bay. He can't close it, so he just wants to release prisoners. He did it unilaterally. This has nothing to do with Bergdahl. He is caught in the middle, but it's an excuse to release the guys from Guantanamo. And I do have a suggestion for a trade. For Miriam Ibrahim, the pregnant lady who's in prison in Sudan.
Yes.
Let's release our five: Obama, Biden, Clinton, Holder, and Rice.
So we'll do our own 5-for-1.
Yes, sir.
That's not a bad idea, David. All right, thank you. And David is exactly right that what this is really about, David is right. What this is about is President Obama emptying Guantanamo Bay. Remember, he started off the first act he did as president, the first thing he did was sign some kind of order that he was going to close down Guantanamo Bay. And I've got two articles in the stack here, that exactly what Danny was saying. Marie Harf, we played part of the soundbite from her yesterday, that the Taliban prisoners were released in exchange were probably going to be released anyway because Obama's going to clean out Guantanamo Bay. This is just the first step. Focal Point, AFR Talk. We'll be right back after the news. Stay with us.